Good morning. I'm Savannah Sellers. Joe is on assignment this morning. Thank you for starting your Friday with us. We're going to start this morning with Hurricane Ernesto gaining strength in the Atlantic Ocean. The storm, which was upgraded to a Category 2 overnight, is expected to make landfall in Bermuda early Saturday morning. It's already packing winds of 100 miles per hour, and forecasters predict it could drop up to 15 inches of rain on some parts of the island. Now residents are boarding up and evacuating to safety from potential life-threatening floods, as several flights to and from the island are canceled. This comes after the storm caused near island-wide blackouts and catastrophic flooding in Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands earlier this week. This morning, more than 400,000 people in Puerto Rico are still without power. Always such a concern after a storm like this. Meteorologist Ryan Hanrahan is standing by with the forecast, but we're going to start with NBC News correspondent Guad Venegas, who is in Bermuda. Guad, good morning.
Savannah, good morning. We're in the final hours of preparation here in Bermuda, a beautiful ocean and somewhat the calm before the storm as Ernesto keeps picking up strength over the Atlantic and making its way towards us. Now, local officials here want people to prepare. These are the final hours to get food, water, batteries, make sure everyone has their cell phone charged. The last time that Bermuda was hit by a big storm like this was Fiona 2 years ago. That wasn't a direct impact, but still, that storm knocked out the power for thousands and caused damage around the island. We can expect the center of the storm, according to the forecast, to come very close to Bermuda in this direction. Now, local officials say the last plane will be taking off later today. The cruise ships have left a dockyard as people essentially prepare to shelter in place when the island is expected to shut down later today. The effects of the rain and the wind are expected to hit tonight and into Saturday as Ernesto heads towards Bermuda. Savannah, back to you.
All right, Guad, thank you very much, and please stay safe. For more details on Hurricane Ernesto's path, let's get a look at your morning news now weather. Ryan Hanrahan, chief meteorologist from our station in Connecticut. He has been with us all week on this big story. He joins us now. Ryan, good morning.
Good morning, Savannah. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, we have seen some strengthening with Ernesto in the last 12 hours or so. Here's the storm. There's Bermuda. You can see if you look closely, there's a bit of an eye that is beginning to develop. Now, if this eye becomes more defined and more clear, it'll be a sign that Ernesto is strengthening. So we're going to keep a close eye on that through the day today. Winds of 100 miles per hour. It's about 320 miles right now to the south-southwest of Bermuda, and it's moving to the northeast at 13 miles per hour. Take a look at the track here, and it almost looks like we're going to see a direct hit on Bermuda sometime early Saturday morning. That's when the worst of the conditions will develop. And then by Saturday afternoon, it moves past the island. Winds could gust over 100 miles per hour on Bermuda, and they're going to get a ton of rain out of this. Look at this, 15 inches of rain possible on Bermuda, which would cause some significant flash flooding. And there also will be some storm surge flooding because of the wind and the waves that'll be developing. After that, the storm curves out to sea into the Atlantic Ocean, but it's so large and it's so powerful, it's going to be sending some swells toward the east coast of the United States. So rip currents a concern from Florida all the way up to Rhode Island. So if you're planning a trip to the beach this weekend, something to be mindful of. Big waves, but also the potential for some powerful rip currents. The other story, and this has been the story all week, it has just been brutally hot down south, and that heat continues. We have excessive heat warnings in effect now from Dallas to Little Rock over toward Jackson, Mississippi. New Orleans under a heat advisory, same deal in Houston, and that's for a combination of heat and humidity. That's just going to be pretty tough to take. And I think the heat really peaks this weekend. It's been hot all week, that is for sure. But this weekend is going to be even worse than what we've been looking at. 102, the high temperature for today in Dallas, 101 in Little Rock, Amarillo, Texas there in the Panhandle, 104. That's a full 15 degrees above average for the time of year. And check this out. This is tomorrow. 103 in Dallas, 98 in Houston, 95 degrees in Memphis. And that's just part of the story. You factor in the humidity, it'll feel more like 105 or 110 in those towns. Farther to the north, it's a lot cooler and a lot more comfortable. Look at Boston, Sunday 79, Monday 78, Tuesday 76. Same deal in Chicago, temperatures in the 70s. The heat builds the farther south you go. Of course, Charlotte will be up near 90 on Sunday. This morning, we do have some storms moving through the Midwest. A stormy start to the day from Indianapolis up through portions of Michigan, and we'll be watching those storms move to the east through the weekend. Through Sunday, decent amount of rain across the mid-Atlantic, back through the Great Lakes. So it's a bit of a soggy start to the weekend. Looks like that rain is going to move east toward the I-95 corridor from New York down to Philadelphia and D.C. But I think a lot of that holds off until later in the day Sunday or Monday. So most of the weekend should be okay right along the coast. And there is a threat for some severe storms today in the plains from Tulsa, Oklahoma, up north through Wichita, Dodge City. The big threat with those storms will likely be some large hail. Weekend forecast, some gusty storms moving to the east. And again, we'll be watching those rip currents right along the coast, Savannah.
Got to stay safe if you're having a beach weekend. Ryan,
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. We'll see you in just a little bit. Let's get to politics now. President Biden appeared alongside Vice President Harris on Thursday for their first joint event since the president ended his re-election bid. They were in Maryland to announce that agreement with Medicare to lower prices for 10 costly prescription drugs. Meanwhile, over in New Jersey, former President Trump held a news conference saying he won't follow the advice of allies who want him to dial back his attacks on Vice President Harris. NBC News correspondent Garrett Hake has the latest.
Vice President Harris holding her first joint event with President Biden since he dropped out of the race and endorsed her.
She's going to make one hell of a president.
Appearing in front of a raucous crowd to tout a White House-led effort to lower drug prices.
And today we take the next step. Thank you, Joe. Forward in our fight.
Biden taking aim at Republicans.
But they're trying to turn this into a race war. They're trying to turn this into a war about who you are, what your ethnicity is, what your background is.
Beforehand, President Biden was asked if Harris might try to distance herself from him on the economy.
She's not going to.
Later in a press conference, former President Trump tying them together, hammering both Harris and Biden for inflation.
You don't have to imagine what a Kamala Harris presidency would be, because you're living through that nightmare right now, and it is a nightmare.
And he was pressed about fellow Republicans calling for him to focus on Harris's record instead of unleashing personal attacks.
I think I'm entitled to personal attacks. I don't have a lot of respect for her. I don't have a lot of respect for her intelligence, and I think she'll be a terrible president. I mean, she certainly attacks me personally. She actually called me weird. He's weird, and she's weird in her policy. Who wouldn't want to have strong borders? Who doesn't want to have lower taxes?
Meanwhile, NBC News learning from two sources familiar with the planning that the Secret Service will start using bullet-resistant glass to protect former President Trump so he can resume outdoor rallies after he survived an assassination attempt last month in Pennsylvania. Ballistic glass is already available to President Biden and Vice President Harris.
Our thanks to Garrett Hake for that report. Let's stay on this and get analysis from our friend NBC News senior politics reporter John Allen. John, good morning. Great to have you with us. So Vice President Harris is going to be back on the campaign trail today. This time it'll be in battleground state North Carolina. She's expected to unveil some details here on her economic policies, specifically proposals for tax cuts. What do we know so far about that?
Yeah, good morning, Savannah. I think the big thing that we know about her economic policy so far is that it appears to be kind of a continuation of what Joe Biden has been trying to do, and in some cases what he's already accomplished. These are most of her proposals seem to be unfinished business of the Biden administration. There has been already a little bit of a rollout of these proposals, and none of them is, at least so far, has been a massive, sort of full-on economic proposal or package, but we'll have to wait to see.
John, let's turn to the Trump campaign. We saw the former president yesterday, as we just talked about there with Garrett, refusing to back down from these personal attacks, despite warnings from some allies. You co-wrote a piece, we're looking at it right here, about how Mr. Trump is, quote, struggling with a new political reality. Walk us through both of those things, what these allies have been saying, what his response has been to that, but then also just what we are seeing happen with sort of a momentum shift in polls.
Yeah, and I think actually, Savannah, if I could start with that end of it, what we've seen is a shift in polling, sort of a reversal of fortunes. For a long time, Donald Trump was leading in polls by, a small but sort of consistent margin, and Democrats were very worried that he was going to win, that Joe Biden couldn't change the trajectory. And maybe Joe Biden could have, maybe he couldn't have, but what the Democrats did is they changed their candidate. And as a result of that, what we've seen is a bump for Kamala Harris, their energy and enthusiasm on the Democratic side. And Donald Trump is seeing that, and people who, people who watch him closely, Republican operatives, people who have worked for him in the past, look at that and say that he is, for lack of a better term, kind of scattershot right now because he has. They say he's afraid of losing, and that's sort of affecting his behavior right now, and affecting his calls for, his claims of this election being rigged, sort of pre-justifying or preemptively claiming that, and also, they're concerned that the Republicans are concerned that he's become distracted by that and is not talking about immigration, inflation, and other issues so much as he used to prior, when he felt more comfortable about his position.
John, let's also talk on the running mate side of things. Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, our two VP candidates, they have agreed to debate on October 1st. What is the big headline here? What are you watching out for?
I think the big headline here is that people are going to vote for or against Donald Trump, to be honest with you, Savannah. And potentially they'll vote for or against Vice President Harris. I think the vice presidential running mates are fascinating for those of us that love politics. I think most voters don't really care. The sort of secondary headline here is that after a lot of abnormal things in this election so far, we're going to see something that's pretty normal. The two vice presidential candidates squaring off against each other. We're going to see at least one more presidential debate, perhaps two more presidential debates, and there is some sort of return to normalcy.
John Allen, very interesting stuff. Thank you so much. Great to see you. And you at home can tune into our coverage of the Democratic National Convention. That starts on Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time here on NBC News Now, and then 10 p.m. Eastern on NBC. You can also, of course, always follow along in our NBC News app. We've always got a fantastic live blog going there from our colleagues. Well, let's head to Hollywood now, where officials have charged 5 people in connection to the death of actor Matthew Perry, including 2 doctors and his personal assistant. The charges come as we are learning troubling new details about the actor's final weeks from newly filed court documents. NBC News entertainment correspondent Chloe Malas has more.
Federal investigators revealing a web of people motivated by greed, including 2 doctors who they say took advantage of a vulnerable Matthew Perry, supplying him with lethal amounts of ketamine, a well-known party drug, but primarily a medication used for anesthesia, and in recent years prescribed as an alternate treatment for depression.
Matthew Perry sought treatment for depression and anxiety and went to a local clinic where he became addicted to intravenous ketamine. When clinic doctors refused to increase his dosage, he turned to unscrupulous doctors who saw Perry as a way to make quick money.
Among those charged, Perry's live-in personal assistant, who investigators say administered that final lethal dose that resulted in his death last October. Officials say the lead defendants are Dr. Salvador Plasencia, known as Dr. P, and alleged drug dealer Jasveen Sangha, known as the ketamine queen of North Hollywood, according to the Department of Justice. Attorneys for both did not immediately respond for comment.
In the fall of 2023, Mr. Perry fell back into addiction, and these defendants took advantage to profit.
The 18-count indictment lays out how over the course of just 1 month in the fall of 2023, prosecutors say the ring of individuals supplied Perry with dozens of vials of liquid ketamine, charging the star upwards of $60,000.
He wrote in a text message, quote, "I wonder how much this moron will pay."
Investigators say that these individuals knew Perry had struggled for years with addiction.
They knew what they were doing was risking great danger to Mr. Perry, but they did it anyways.
After Perry's death, the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office revealed the level of ketamine in Perry's body were so high that they were equivalent to the amount used during general anesthesia during surgery. The arrest after Perry's death comes after high-profile celebrities like Michael Jackson and Prince overdosed and died after also being supplied drugs by medical doctors. Jackson's doctor, Conrad Murray, was convicted of involuntary manslaughter in 2011 for improperly administering propofol to the singer.
If you are in the business of selling dangerous drugs, we will hold you accountable for the deaths that you cause.
Chloe Malas, NBC News, Los Angeles.
NBC News legal analyst Angela Sanadella joins us now for more on this. Angela, always great to have you with us. So officials say the doctors knew about Perry's history of drug addiction before supplying him with ketamine. Walk us through what that means from a legal perspective. Are doctors legally obligated to stop prescribing drugs if they know that about somebody? I mean, what's prosecutor's case here?
Yeah, so there's two different levels here. So doctors really have this legal duty of care to their patients. So first of all, at a civil level, that's where you see medical malpractice happening much more commonly than a criminal investigation like this. But then at another level, doctors like us all have a requirement to follow the law. And here the criminal allegations are not just that they prescribed too much ketamine, it's also that they went backwards and allegedly made up fake records to show that they were using ketamine. Also, this part of this conspiracy allegation, they allegedly agreed together to illegally prescribe him way more than what was necessary.
We've seen some people plead guilty to some of the charges, others plead not guilty. Walk us through what we've seen so far in that regard, and if it details anything about a strategy we could see.
Yeah, so the strategy there, I believe, comes down to the conspiracy. So in this digital age, it is so much easier for prosecutors to charge conspiracy because for that, they have to prove there's an agreement between more than one person to violate the law. And before, the question there was, how do you prove intent? But here, with 3 people pleading guilty already, you have some sort of intent there and some sort of an agreement. So it's likely in those plea agreements, they have agreed to testify or at least provide information, cooperate against the others. And then also, though, digitally, they have things like text messages, they have Google searches, they have encrypted messages that show allegedly some sort of agreement between these people. So it all comes down to proving the conspiracy charge.
Do you think that more charges are possible in a case here? What do you see happening next?
So that's always possible. Part of the reason for doing a press conference like this is first, obviously, to reassure the public. But second, it's also for the public then to be able to provide more information to know what's going on. So because this was allegedly this underground criminal network that likely didn't involve just Matthew Perry, but possibly there are more victims, as a result, charges are always additionally possible.
Angela, one so many people are interested in, I'm sure we will continue to talk about this. Thank you for joining us on it this morning.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.